Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Fatherless Sons. I am your host, Wiley, and this is episode 107. On today's show, we have some great things lined up for you in all three segments. Our first segment of Building Your Empire, we will be talking about mentor selection, which is very important. And our segment of Couch Time, we will be talking about breaking the cycle. And during my favorite segment, Fatherless and Famous, we'll be revealing today's episode, Fatherless and Famous. I'm really excited about this one because I'll do a little spoiler right now. It is a she, and I think it's a really good story. I had fun researching this one. So let's go ahead and dive right into today's episode, Building Your Empire. So we are going to talk about mentor selection and how important it is. I've heard people say, sometimes, especially people that are in a great position, that you don't need a mentor if you're really focused and you're trying to grow and get somewhere. And I can't say that I fully agree with that. It's easy to say that after you have traveled the journey. It's not so easy when you're the one at the beginning of the road trying to figure out how to proceed. Yes, determination will take you far, but that extra guidance to let you know that you're going the right direction, that you should put more effort in this direction and leave that direction alone, etc. That little guidance really goes far. So I think and believe that having the right mentor is critical. I think is very important. I've had mentors in my life. My primary mentor, who I've mentioned before on this show, Patrick. Patrick was someone who could tell me the truth and tell me like it was, and tell me what not to do, where I needed to stop wasting time, where I needed to focus, the changes I needed to make, and what success looked like. Because he was very successful when I was looking, at the age of 16, 17 years old, looking at this Black man who was very successful, and I was surrounded by people who were unsuccessful. So for me to see an example of success, that was really important. I remember when Patrick took me with him to order a car. Now, at the time, the experience of buying a car for me was you go to a used car lot and you talk to the salesperson, try to work out a great deal. They work and they run your credit, and hopefully they'll come with some good news and try to figure out a way to get you into the car if you perhaps give them more money. That was my experience. And when you got the car, there was a chance that it would have problems and you'll end up spending more money a year down the line. You could have gotten a lemon, etc. But here it is. This Black man is taking me to order a brand new car. I'm with him while he's selecting the color of the interior, selecting the color of the outside, the little details that he wanted. And it was a totally new experience for me. So having that as an example from someone who was not out there, doing crime, selling drugs or anything like that, seeing a Black business professional do it the right way really had a profound effect on me at a young age. So those little things you can also take away from your mentor, not just the lessons that they teach you, but the example that they set. Now, a lot of you who are probably watching this, you may have a mentor or maybe you don't have a mentor. I will offer myself up through these videos. You don't have to have the mentor right next to you or in your life. It can be just inspirational guidance videos like what you're watching here on this channel. When I give out advice and direction on the segment of Building Your Empire, I like to share usable information that will help guide you as if I was mentoring you directly. So if you haven't seen the previous episodes, at least in the Building Your Empire segment, and you're looking for a mentor, I would say start with that if you don't have anyone close by or someone you can grab a hold of. But let's say you do have a fine example, someone who has proven themselves to be successful and knowledgeable and smart, and they're willing to possibly meet with you and help you out. I would say ask the question. Because my mom always said a closed mouth does not get fed. So you have to open your mouth and ask the question. Walk up to them and offer to buy them a cup of coffee or offer them to go out to lunch with you or do something for them to let them know, number one, I'm serious about not wasting your time and I would love for you to be able to answer a few questions because you're the kind of person that I want to ask these questions of. So offer, to buy a cup of coffee. Hey, is it, I see you have found some success and you kind of know me from around. Would you mind if I buy you a cup of coffee so I can ask you a few questions? It could be something as simple as that. And in today's world where, asking a girl out or asking a stranger or asking someone you barely know to have a cup of coffee with you, it may push you out of your comfort zone. That's something I would acknowledge as real. And some people won't be able to get past that. So I have to be realistic. I have to be realistic about it. If this is you to where you can't build up the nerve to ask the person, to go out for a cup of coffee, then I would say look for opportunities to ask those questions of the person. So maybe you see this person at your job and you see them all the time. They're successful, they're busy, etc. But every now and then there may present a time where you are isolated with them, out of earshot of other people, and it's a great opportunity to ask one of your questions. Maybe one of your questions would be you realize that they're in real estate, for example, and you want to know if it's a good idea to put your rental property into an LLC. When you see that opportunity, then force yourself to take advantage and seize that opportunity to ask one question at a time. But ask the question, It's one thing to look this stuff up on the internet and use ChatGPT or Grok to find the answers, but it's hard to get answers to questions you don't even know to ask. And by asking that intro question, the person might say, well, why are you asking about an LLC for your rental property? And before you know it, he might answer in a way that you wasn't even thinking, in a way that a chatbot or AI won't do. They won't say, why are you asking that question? They'll just give you an answer. Whereas a mentor might challenge you, and that's what you need. And they might offer better directions. And I say this because I've done this before as a mentor. I'm currently mentoring people right now. I'm always mentoring someone. That's one of my ways of always giving back is mentoring people. And sometimes my mentee will ask me a question and I'll say, well, why are you asking that question? And why do you think that that's important? Instead, why don't you focus on this? So hopefully you can build the courage to ask them out for a cup of coffee or to buy them lunch. And like I said, if that's not an option for you, if that's moving too fast, write your questions down, the questions that you're really curious about. You won't even have to write them down because you'll know what they are in your head already. And look for those opportunities and build up the courage to ask one question at a time because they're going to see that you're interested. And before you know it, they may even invite you out, to go have a cup of coffee with them so that they can talk to you more, especially if they see that you're sharp and you're not wasting time. The last thing I'll say on mentor selection is be very careful who you choose to listen to. You don't want to be in a situation where the blind is leading the blind, and that can easily happen. It happens even on the internet where you have people who talk fast, who sound like they know what they're talking about, who sounds like they're making some sense and sounds like they have experience, but reality is they don't know anything. They're trying to figure it out themselves. And they'll pretend like they know what they're talking about because it makes them feel almighty. It makes them feel important to have an audience of people who choose to listen to them. One great indicator to decide if the person is real or not is, and my mentor Patrick actually taught me this, is look at what they have. Look at what they're doing. Look at how they carry themselves and the kind of people that they have in their lives and how they manage their own accounts and affairs and money, their own investments. Look at that. And if they don't have anything to show for themselves, yet they call themselves giving you advice, then that should be a red flag right there. So be careful who you listen to. Make sure you're listening to people that have sound advice that maybe they're already in the spot where you want to go. Because if you're listening to people who are worse off than you or who are not where you want to be, then I would ask, why are you even listening to them or trying to allow them to give you advice or quote unquote mentor you? It doesn't make sense. So please don't waste your time listening to the wrong people. The worst thing is you can get bad advice. You'll end up wasting time doing the wrong thing and find yourself in a worse off position because you followed the wrong advice and God forbid you do something that's illegal because you're listening to them, or that can get you into legal jeopardy because you're listening to fancy, fast moving advice that sounds great, but really, it's really bad. Okay, so let's jump into our next segment, couch time. In today's couch time, we will be talking about breaking the cycle. Now, this one is going to be tough for a lot of people to implement because habit is hard to break. And especially when your surroundings are negative and they're holding you back from that that needed change. I'll give you a scenario. If you're someone who's recovering from alcoholism, you can't keep walking into a bar with all of your friends at the bar while you're trying to be sober, because eventually they'll drag you back down the road that you are trying not to travel. So if you want to truly stay sober and protect your sobriety, then the right thing to do is to stop going to the bar and possibly find some new friends who are not always talking about going to the bar, or who's not always hungover or drunk or on their way to the bar. You will become what you surround yourself with. So if you're trying to break a cycle, whether that cycle is poverty, whether it's fatherlessness, whether it's alcoholism or gambling or time wasting, whatever it is, if you're trying to bump yourself up from one income level up to a higher level, then you have to start surrounding yourself with what you want to become. Okay. Now, because when you're breaking the cycle, you're going to go through a moment of isolation where the people around you are no longer the same people that you were surrounded by before. That same example of the alcoholic, when they divorced themselves of the friends who were always going to the bar and they stopped going to the bar themselves, they're going to have a moment of limbo where they're trying to now fill that void. So they have to have new friends. They have to have a new pastime. Instead of going to the bar, they have to do something else. So you have to acknowledge that yourself as a real thing, because if you're too lonely in that void, you might find yourself going backwards to the old friends and to the old bar. So be conscious and aware of that loneliness. Be strong to handle that loneliness until you find new friends and new pastimes. You have to just be aware of that. And that's just part of the journey of breaking the cycle. Now, you're also going to have those same people from your old world trying to hold on to you and stop you from going away and leaving them and going into a new direction. So going back to that bar analogy, your buddy Ted, who always used to go to the bar with you on Thursday and Friday and Saturday, just make it a weekend deal. When you say, Ted, I'm not going to the bar anymore, I'm trying to stay sober and that's not really helping me out. Oh, well, you don't have to drink. You could be my designated driver or something. They'll do all kinds of things to get you to still come because they want that company, and if you're, their best bud, they're going to be missing that. They might even try to talk you out of it. Oh man, sobriety is overrated. You don't need to be sober. There was nothing wrong with you before. Right. And this translates to any change that you want to make. When you're trying to make those changes, the old world is going to try to pull you back. That's why I say you have to be strong so that you can walk away from that and walk into isolation until you find a replacement for that pastime. But the reward once you do it is great. Okay. Surround yourself with going to the park instead of going to the bar, or going to maybe some sober social clubs. I know AA have clubs that you can go to where they're not drinking, but they're still playing cards, etc. So go to that instead of going to the bar. Hang out in a different place. Develop new friends that you can hang out with instead of hanging out with the same crowd that likes to party. Okay. So break the cycle, be courageous to be different, and don't allow your old life to pull you back. All easier said than done, but it can be done. And I think it's worth it. Okay, so our final segment today, Fatherless and Famous. Fatherless and Famous is one of my favorite segments, I have to admit. Honestly, I like all three segments, but this one always, makes me excited. And today's episode, I think, is refreshing because when I did the research on this person, it's a lady, it was not full of doom and gloom. And I enjoyed every turn that I took during the research on this one. So without any further ado, The fatherless and famous that I wanted to acknowledge on this episode is Alicia Keys. So Alicia was raised by her mom by herself, and her mother's name was Terry, and Terry was with a boyfriend named Craig at the time. He was a flight attendant, and they had a kid together, Alicia Keys, when Terry was 19 and Craig was 21. So they were both young. This is in Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan, New York. So I know a lot of times you'll hear about people in inner cities and tough cities, tough backgrounds that they just don't have a fair shot in life, and they go through a lot of abuse, trauma, and poverty. I was refreshed to read and find out that that was not the case here. Terry was smart. She went to college. She went to NYU and got her 4-year degree. And she didn't get an official degree in paralegal. She actually got a certificate for being a paralegal. But that gave her enough income to not be in poverty and to raise Alicia in a healthy way, even though she was a single parent without a father figure in the household. Now, here, this was a strong woman who raised her daughter and pointed her daughter in the right direction as far as music was concerned, because Terry knew that this would be a great way to wealth if she pointed her daughter to the music industry, which is a smart move. I mean, it worked. Now, Alicia obviously found success as a singer. I went to one of her concerts in Canada with my wife, and that was a wonderful time that I had. Alicia gave a great performance. She's a great entertainer and a great singer. And when I visited Miami, I saw Alicia Keys' home and her yacht. So she has a yacht out there, and I forgot the name of the yacht, but it has something to do with a play off of her name. So that was like really cool to see. And prior to doing this research, I didn't know that Alicia Keys was fatherless, that she grew up in a fatherless household. I didn't know that. So it was really great to hear that she was raised by a powerful, strong woman who was educated, who was a hard worker, and did such a great job on raising a fine daughter. Now, Alicia has 2 kids of her own that she had with her current husband, Swizz Beatz, and they are raising those 2 kids together, being in their lives. Alicia and Swizz are like in their kids' life, and they have 2 boys, which is beautiful. The 2 boys are age 15 years old and 11 years old. And actually, when I was in Canada at Alicia Keys' concert, her son actually played the piano and participated in the performance. He did a great job. Now, Alicia's father was not in the relationship or around when she was young, but as Alicia grew older, after she was really upset and disappointed that her dad was not in her life, she did repair her relationship with him. And now she considers him a friend, which is awesome, that she was able to, patch that relationship up with him and not, hold a grudge. Alicia and her husband just celebrated 15 years of marriage, and they are still going strong. I'll go ahead and do what we like to do on this show, which is talk about Alicia's net worth. This one was also a surprise to me. And when I looked up her net worth, I honestly thought it was a little bit more than what it turned out to be. Alicia on her own, her net worth is $75 million, which is still a lot of money when you put it into context. $75 million is a lot of money. That's great. I like to highlight people's net worth so that I can show what a fatherless daughter or son can achieve, even though they had maybe a rocky road ahead, at the beginning. But you don't have to be a multimillionaire to find great success. I'm not a multimillionaire. I've passed the million dollar mark, but I'm not a multimillionaire, which is something that I'm still aspiring to. And I'm going to take you all on that journey with me. But even at $500,000 of net worth, you can still live a very comfortable life and provide for your family if you do it the right way. So keep watching this show so that, number one, if you're not there, you will get there. Number two, when you get there, you'll be able to, afford the things that you want and do it the right way by budgeting correctly and spending your money on the right types of things and having the right types of assets in your life. It's just a beautiful story. It's one of the most uplifting stories that I was able to research when it came to a fatherless person, daughter or son, up to this point. So thank you for uplifting my soul, Alicia, and your story. Okay, so that will do it for our show today. Thank you for joining. Please subscribe, give thumbs up, and like this video so that more people can find it with the algorithm. And leave comments. Go ahead and leave comments on this video, on your story, on questions that you might have, and I'll be sure to read and answer those questions through a reply in the comments as well. Hopefully you all are able to get some helpful information from these videos. So if that's the case, please, consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks a lot. And until next time, have a good one.